Welcome to the deep dive. Today, our mission is really to give you the key tools, the vocabulary, from the sociology of gender.
Right.
We want to move past just personal feelings and look at how society actually, constructs and enforces gender.
And negotiates it, too, constantly.
Exactly. And when you look around now, I mean, the conflicts over gender, sexuality, they seem to be everywhere.
Oh, absolutely.
We've got these big legislative fights over identity, like the Don't Say Gay laws or who gets to participate in sports. Plus, the gender pay gap is still stubbornly there globally. And then there's a rise in, online sexual harassment, which is just disturbing.
It really is.
It feels like we're caught in this huge social battle over what gender even means.
And it's definitely not just one country's issue. This is a really profound global crisis.
Okay.
I mean, look at the real-world impact. Canada actually issued a travel warning last year.
To the U.S., really?
Yeah, warning LGBTQIA plus people about traveling to the U.S. because of discriminatory state laws.
Yeah.
And zooming out further, Human Rights Watch reports that at least 67 countries still criminalize same-sex relations. Consenting adults.
67! That's staggering!
It is. It shows this is fundamentally about power and who gets to define what's normal.
So that brings us to the scope for today.
Right, the sociology of gender. We're basically applying sociological tools, the ways sociologists think and research,
Okay.
to explore how gender, sexuality, expression, identity, how all these things are socially constructed.
So built by society,
Yeah.
not just inherent.
Exactly, and imposed, enforced, how they get reproduced generation after generation, how people negotiate them, push back.
Got it. So by the end of this, you, the listener, should have the language to understand these conflicts on a deeper level.
Yeah, to see the structures underneath the surface arguments.
Okay, let's unpack that. To even start analyzing gender, we need the right perspective, right? How do we learn to look like a sociologist?
That's the first step, the sociological perspective. It's basically a lens, a way of seeing. Yeah, it helps you spot these large-scale social patterns, things that are often kind of invisible in daily life until you deliberately look.
Okay, give me an example.
Well, think about something really familiar, like a toy aisle.
Okay, boys' toys, girls' toys, blue and pink.
Exactly.
Yeah.
If you just see toys, you miss it. But if you notice the stark division, the specific marketing, toys for boys, toys for girls, you start asking, why is it divided like that? Why does that feel normal? That questioning is the sociological perspective kicking in.
Makes sense. But it takes effort, right? Because we're so used to it.
It takes real, intentional effort. Our assumptions run deep. Sociologists use a couple of core strategies to force this new way of seeing.
Like what?
First is the beginner's mind. This idea comes from Buddhist practice, actually.
Okay.
It means trying to see the world without your preconceptions. Being open, receptive, like you're seeing it for the very first time. You have to actively unlearn what you think you know.
Unlearn. I like that. What else?
We also use culture shock. Not traveling necessarily, but creating that feeling of disorientation about your own culture.
How do you do that?
By trying to describe something familiar as if to an alien. Make the familiar strange. Like, try describing, say, a baby doll in minute detail, but you can't use the words baby or doll.
Oh, wow. Okay. It's a small plastic figure shaped like a tiny human with painted eyes.
See, you immediately realize how much cultural baggage, how many assumptions are packed into just seeing it.
Yeah, that's tricky. So those help us get the perspective. What's the main tool then?
The most famous one, really ties it together, is the sociological imagination. C. Wright Mills came up with this.
Right, I've heard of that.
If the perspective is the lens, the imagination is like the telescope. It connects the personal to the public.
Okay, break that down.
It's understanding the link between your own personal experiences, your life story, what Mills called biography, and the larger impersonal social forces, the historical context, what he called history.
So seeing how my private troubles might actually be public issues.
Precisely. Realizing that something feeling like a personal failing or just a random choice you made is often shaped by or intersects with these huge social systems.
Can you give a gender example?
Sure. Think about, say, a trans person's struggle to simply use a public restroom safely.
Okay.
That's not just a personal issue of feeling safe or uncomfortable. It's their biography, their identity intersecting with history, the current social anxieties, the legislative battles about who belongs where.
That connection is key. And how does society actually teach us these gender rules?
Through socialization. It's this lifelong process, really. Learning the culture, the norms, the expectations through all our interactions.
From parents, school, media?
Everywhere. That's how we learn, often unconsciously, how to do gender the way society expects us to.
And there's another concept, figuration.
Ah, yes. Norbert Elias, figuration. It's a way to grasp that society and the individual aren't separate things you can study in isolation.
They're intertwined.
Totally inseparable. Figuration means looking at both individual behavior and the social structures that shape that behavior simultaneously. They create each other, in a way.
Like a dance.
That's a great analogy. Society is the dance floor, the music, the steps everyone knows. Individuals are the dancers.
Okay.
We move within that structure. Even if someone tries a wild new move, they're still reacting to the music, using the same floor space as everyone else. You can't understand the dancer without understanding the whole dance.
So you can't understand individual gender expression without understanding the societal rules of gender.
Exactly. The structure enforces those traditional roles, even when individuals try to resist.
Okay, that framework helps. So with that lens on, let's define the core thing. Gender. What is it, sociologically speaking?
Right. The definition we use is gender refers to the meanings, the attitudes, behaviors, norms, roles, all the things a society or culture ascribes to perceived sexual differences.
Ascribes. That's the key word, isn't it? Assigned meaning.
It's crucial. It implies it's not automatic or purely biological. It's a social layer of meaning put onto biology.
And that leads directly to that really core sociological claim, the one that kind of stops you in your tracks. Gender is real, but it is not true.
Yes. Let's definitely slow down here. This is central.
Okay. It sounds like a contradiction. Real, but not true.
It's a paradox designed to make us think. So first part, gender is real.
How so?
It's real because its consequences are incredibly real and powerful. Gender shapes your identity, how people treat you, your job opportunities, your pay, your safety, your overall standing in society. Gender inequality is devastatingly real.
Okay, so the impacts are undeniable. It matters.
Absolutely. That's the real part.
So why is it not true?
It's not true in the sense of being a fixed, universal biological certainty. The meanings of gender are socially constructed.
Meaning they change.
They change across cultures, they change over time. What's considered masculine or feminine isn't the same everywhere or always. It's not biologically mandated in the way we often assume.
And the belief that it is universally true and fixed, that's what drives some of those conflicts we mentioned earlier.
Exactly. If you believe there's only one true way to be a man or a woman, based on biology, then you might feel justified in creating laws or rules that enforce that specific model and exclude others.
That makes a lot more sense now. And the main way that one true way gets enforced is through the gender binary, right?
Correct. This very limited system that says gender can only be masculine or feminine. 2 boxes, no alternatives allowed.
And we need some terms here. Cisgender.
Cisgender describes someone whose personal gender identity aligns with the sex they were assigned at birth.
And transgender.
Transgender describes someone whose gender identity differs from the sex assigned at birth.
Got it. And this binary system often comes packaged with heteronormativity.
Yes, that's the assumption, often embedded in laws and social customs, that heterosexuality is the only default or normal orientation.
And it includes the idea that genders are naturally opposites, meant to pair up.
Right, and that any sexual activity outside of male-female coupling is therefore somehow deviant or unnatural. It reinforces the binary.
But as you said, the binary itself isn't universally true.
Not at all, and that's crucial. If we look outside the dominant Western framework, we find many cultures have traditionally recognized and integrated non-binary gender classifications. This proves the binary is just one cultural model, not the truth.
Can you give some examples?
Sure. A well-known one is two-spirit, a term used by some indigenous peoples across North America.
Okay.
Historically and today, two-spirit individuals might embody aspects of different genders, sometimes taking on specific social or spiritual roles, maybe doing work typically associated with another gender. It's complex and varies between nations, but it's definitely not a binary concept.
Interesting. Any others?
Another fascinating example is the Whāawhāwhine in Samoa. The term means something like the way of the woman. These are people assigned male at birth, who embody both masculine and feminine traits and expressions. They aren't just tolerated. Traditionally, they're seen as integral parts of the family and community life, often involved in leadership or childcare.
Wow. So these examples show that gender fluidity isn't some new invention.
Absolutely not. It's ancient and widespread. The rigid, enforced binary is actually the more culturally specific and, frankly, limiting idea.
Okay, so when a society does enforce that limited binary, what are the results?
The most direct result is gender inequality. the unequal sharing of power, resources, opportunities based purely on gender.
And that's cropped up by patriarchy.
Yes, patriarchy literally means rule of fathers, but sociologically it refers to a social system where masculinity and traits associated with it are valued more, granting more power, status, and control.
It's a system where being manly inherently means having more authority.
In essence, yes. And the data starkly backs this up. Globally, the World Economic Forum found something pretty shocking.
What's that?
Women have the same legal rights as men in only 14 countries worldwide.
Wait, 14 out of nearly 190?
14.
Oh.
Yeah. It speaks volumes about how deeply embedded these power structures are, how resistant to change.
That is genuinely shocking. I would have guessed much higher.
Most people would. And look at basic human needs. Women make up 60% of the world's chronically hungry people. Inequality has life or death consequences.
And here in the U.S., we talk about the pay gap a lot.
We do. And the overall number, women earning about 81 cents for every dollar a man makes, is bad enough.
But it's not the whole story, is it?
Not even close. You have to apply an intersectional lens. Look at how gender overlaps with race, ethnicity, other factors.
Right.
When you compare pay to white, non-Hispanic men, the gap becomes a chasm. Latinas earn just 57 cents on that dollar. Black women, 64 cents.
So gender inequality and racial inequality are completely tangled up.
Inextricably. You can't understand one without the other.
And sociology helps us see these patterns not just in big economic numbers, but also in institutions like the family.
Definitely. The family is often where we first learn gender norms. And families themselves are changing dramatically.
Yeah, more single parents, blended families, same-gender parents.
Right. It's interesting, nearly 15% of same-sex couples in the U.S. now have children. The definition of family is clearly evolving.
Then that must create some tensions with the old rules.
Huge tensions. There's great qualitative research on this. Noelle Chesley interviewed women who are the primary earners, breadwinner mothers, earning 80–100% of the household income.
Okay, what did she find?
Well, on one hand, they reported feeling the same kind of pressure and responsibility that traditional male breadwinners felt. Makes sense.
Sure.
But, and here's the sociological twist, many also expressed deep conflict, feeling like they were somehow undermining their husband's masculinity.
Wow. Even when they were succeeding financially.
Yes. It shows that even when individual circumstances change, those deeply ingrained cultural ideas about proper masculinity and femininity still exert powerful pressure. They felt caught between their reality and the cultural script.
That internal conflict really highlights those invisible constraints we live with. It makes you wonder, are the tools we use to study society also biased by these power structures?
That is the perfect segue into critical sociology. This branch argues exactly that. Social science itself isn't neutral.
How so?
It argues that fields like sociology are embedded within and sometimes even help perpetuate existing systems of power like sexism, racism, capitalism. We have to be critical of our own methods in history.
Can you give an example from history?
Well, think about where sociology emerged. The European scientific tradition, the Enlightenment.
Okay.
That era largely excluded women and non-Europeans from the conversation. And critically, a lot of early science was funded by profits from colonialism.
Which inevitably shaped the kinds of theories that were produced.
Inevitably. It led to deeply ethnocentric ideas, theories of racial hierarchy that conveniently positioned white European men at the top. These weren't objective findings. They reflected the power structures of the time.
Even foundational figures weren't immune.
Not at all. Consider Harriet Martineau. She's sometimes called the first woman sociologist.
Right.
She did crucial work translating Auguste Comte, basically making his complex ideas accessible and helping establish him. But her own original sociological work.
What about it?
Her writings arguing passionately for gender equality, racial equality, the abolition of slavery, they were largely ignored, even suppressed, by the men who controlled the field back then.
So her contributions were erased for a long time.
For over a century. It took feminist scholars in the 20th century to go back, uncover her work, and give her proper credit. It shows how power shapes even what counts as knowledge.
Okay, so if the foundations have these biases, and researchers today still carry biases, conscious or not, how do we guard against that in current research?
The key tool is reflexivity.
Reflexivity, what does that mean?
It's the practice of intentional self-reflection by the researcher.
Yeah.
It means actively, rigorously examining how your own background, your identity, biases, feelings, assumptions, motives might be influencing the research process.
So you turn the lens on yourself before you start.
Exactly. It's done throughout the process, but crucially at the design stage. You have to identify your potential blind spots based on who you are.
How is that different from, say, peer review?
Peer review is vital, but it happens after the research is done when you
Mm-hmm.
submit it for publication. It's an external check.
Right.
Reflexivity is an internal check you apply from the very beginning, trying to catch and account for bias before it shapes the questions you ask or the data you collect.
So if I were a male researcher studying the gender pay gap,
Using reflexivity, you'd have to ask yourself, okay, as a man, what experiences of workplace discrimination am I likely unaware of? Does my position of privilege make me unconsciously downplay certain factors? Is my definition of merit perhaps based on traditionally masculine ways of behaving?
it's a constant self-interrogation.
It has to be. It's about acknowledging your positionality and actively working to mitigate its biasing effects.
Okay. So wrapping up, why is studying the sociology of gender so valuable?
Well, I think it does several crucial things. It shines a light on inequality, helps us see the hidden patterns.
Makes the invisible visible.
Exactly. It lets us identify specific discriminatory policies or practices embedded in our institutions. And importantly, I think, it can validate individual experiences.
How so?
That pay gap data, for instance. Knowing Latinas earn 57 cents on the dollar. That tells an individual Latina woman feeling underpaid that the issue likely isn't her personal failing. It's a systemic, documented problem. That's powerful validation.
It connects the personal biography back to the public history.
Precisely.
So for everyone listening, what's the takeaway? We talked about doing gender.
Right. Early theorists like West and Zimmerman pointed out we all do gender constantly in tiny everyday interactions, how we talk, sit, dress.
Performing it.
Yes. And later, Judith Butler built on that, arguing that if gender is something we do, something performed, then it can be remade. We can choose to do it differently.
Which suggests we have agency right now to change things.
Absolutely. It opens up possibilities for change at the micro level, which can build into macro level shifts.
So if gender is constantly performed and reinforced all around us, maybe here's a final thought for you to consider. We talked about inequality. How might consciously recognizing the reality of systemic injustice, like that pay gap, change how you perform gender day to day, or how you react to others' performances? If gender can be remade, what's one small, maybe restrictive gender performance you engage in that you could consciously choose to interrupt or change, even just for a day? Something to think about until our next deep dive.